Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. We're going to be talking about how to create high-quality listening materials in this presentation. My name is Sam Keith. I have several years of experience doing audio recording and audio editing, and I used to run a recording studio in the United States before I came to Japan.
And my name is Brian Cullen. Welcome, everybody. I've been creating listening materials for EFL textbooks for over 25 years now. And I really hope that everybody can learn some practical techniques in this presentation.
The aim of this presentation is to cover a step-by-step process on how to create high-quality listening materials. We're going to walk through the basic equipment that you need. We'll show you how to edit using a DAW software, and show you how to export and efficiently share your project. We're going to start by breaking this into two categories, the simple way and the more elaborate way. The simple way is probably the most beneficial to the most people and involves simply recording audio using your smartphone or tablet. Most people have probably used the voice memo application or a similar application on their smartphone at some point. This is a great way to record audio, but the editing can be quite cumbersome within this application. So we're mainly going to focus on walking through how to edit and enhance the sound of the audio after recording on your phone. The elaborate way is for people who are planning to do a lot more recording with more elaborate setups, such as 2 or more people speaking simultaneously. Also, this is good for people who want higher quality audio than what a smartphone can offer. These elaborate setups share many of the same principles as the simple way, but with some extra equipment and a few added steps. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a recording of a basic dialogue on the voice memo application on the iPhone, and then later we're going to put this into some editing software and show you how to edit it and make it sound as good as possible. So we're going to intentionally make a couple of mistakes in the dialogue, and we'll show you how to fix those and fix the timing and everything else. So here we go.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about you?
Good, thanks.
Any plans for the weekend?
I'm going to go shopping with my friends out at that new mall.
Cool. Have you been there yet?
No, not yet. How about you?
Yeah, I went last Friday evening. It was packed. Make sure to wear a mask.
So if you go right here, you can actually go to Edit Recording, and you can see these waveforms that have been made. You can see how some of them are bigger than others. So this section right here was kind of a louder sound than, for example, this section here. As long as they're not too small or too big, it should be fine. If you see them looking like big squares on here, then that means that you're too close to the phone and you need to back up just a little bit. But these look really good right here. Okay, so after you've made the recording, you're going to have to get the recording from your phone to the computer. And it's a pretty simple process on an iPhone. If you just go here, you can go to Share, and some of your recent contacts will pop up. And you can also send it by email or by line. I'm just going to go ahead and send this by Gmail. And I'm just going to send it to myself. So if I put in my own email address, that will send it to my email. You could also use Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever you want to use. And I'm sure an Android has different functions than an iPhone as well, but it's a pretty simple process. So,
As Sam was saying, on Android, this is all easy to do. It has a similar voice memo function, or you can download one from the Google Store easily. There's lots available free. And in the same way, you can record and then share the audio. So we'd like to introduce an audio editing software called Audacity. Some of you may have used this. One of the big benefits of Audacity is that it's free. It's also cross-platform, so it can be used on Mac, Windows, or even Linux if anybody is still using Linux. And it's quite a powerful editing software. For this kind of work, you can use it to cut audio, to move audio into the correct position, and you can even use it to add effects. Okay, so here I am inside Audacity, and the first thing we want to do is import the audio file that we recorded on our phone. So I'll choose import. I have it here saved on my desktop, and you can see immediately that it appears into Audacity. So I can drag it down here to make it a little bigger. Now, just to give you a very quick overview of Audacity, here we have the transport controls with pause, play, stop, rewind, fast forward, and record, exactly like a CD player or your MP3 player, whatever. Next to that, we have our tools. Now, there are 6 basic tools in Audacity. The one that's selected right now that I'm pointing to with the mouse, that's the selection tool, and that's probably the one that you'll use most often. The next one is called the envelope tool, and we may talk about that later. Then we have the pencil tool. Then here we have a zoom tool. Now, to be honest, I don't use the zoom tool very often because we can also zoom in and out over here. We also have the time shift tool, and I'll show you how to use that in a minute. And then finally the asterisk tool, which is a multi-tool, which you can use to control all of the tools at the same time. In reality, the most practical 2 tools that you will use are the selection tool and the time shift tool. Now, some other useful features within Audacity. Here, if we look at the track where we imported the audio, you can see here that we have a volume. So if we move that to the left, it will make it quieter. If we move to the right, it will make it louder. Below that, we have what's called a pan. The pan means whether your sound is on the left or on the right or in the center. So in some cases, you may want one speaker on the left, another speaker on the right. In a lot of cases, it's okay to just leave it in the center. So here we are in Audacity, and what we want to do is cut some of the audio, split some of the audio, so we get everything in exactly the right place and we don't have any extra sound. So for example, if we listen at the beginning,
And here we go.
that "and here we go" is not part of the conversation, it's just a cue for the voice actors. So if we use the select tool, we can select all of that section at the beginning, we can go up to the edit menu, and we can choose cut, or we could choose delete. In this case, they will have the same function. Now, as you do that, you can also notice the keyboard shortcuts, which can save you a lot of time. As in most programs, cut is Control X, copy is Control C, paste is Control V, duplicate is Control D. So in this case, let's just cut. Now you can see that that's gone from the beginning. Now let's listen to a little here. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about you?
Good, thanks.
Sorry. So we can hear that there's a bit of a flub in the conversation. So let's show you a slightly different command here, which can be quite useful. If we go into the clip boundaries, we can choose split. And split is a very useful command. We can also access it with the Control I keyboard shortcut. So let's split it there. Let's split it again here with Control I.
Any plans for the weekend?
I'm...
Now that's also a mistake, that I'm. But let's show you how the time shift tool works. We'll switch to the time shift tool. Let's give ourselves a little bit more space to work in. Let's move that out. We can move them back at whatever point we like. So we can just delete this section here. So let's using the select tool, we'll do our Control X, and then we know with the time shift tool, we can pull that back to exactly the right position. So in ways like this, you can edit the audio easily, moving it to exactly the point that you want. Okay, so here we are in Audacity, and let's say we decide that we want to split our audio into 2 tracks. One possible reason to do that is so we have one speaker slightly on the left and one speaker slightly on the right, which is what you might have in a normal conversation. So one way to do this, and there are many ways to do any of these things, we can duplicate that track. So let's duplicate the whole track, and you can see we have it here. Now, here we have the first speaker, and here we have the second speaker. So on the second track, we want to delete this section here. Now we want to remove this not with Control X, but with what we call a split cut. This doesn't move the audio. What it does is it just deletes it from that point without moving any of the other audio. Now here we have the second speaker. So of course we don't need that on this track. So we can do exactly the same thing. We can go into Remove Special and do a split cut. So now you can see how we can split it into 2 tracks, and then we could put one speaker slightly on the left and one speaker slightly on the right. Let's just listen to how that sounds.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Now, if you were listening on headphones or speakers that are separate from each other, then you can probably hear that one is slightly on the left and one is slightly on the right. Okay, now to smooth out the audio so we don't have any sudden changes in volume, we're going to add in some fade-ins and some fade-outs. Now, for example, right at the beginning of our audio, we could add a fade-in. So if we go to Effect, we can just choose Fade In, and what it will do is it will increase the audio from 0 up to the point where it comes in. And we can do the same thing at the end. So we'll just fade out at the end, and it will just make it much smoother so that there's not a sudden change in volume for the students who are listening to it. Now, if you have done a lot of edits, then you may find that just at the beginning or at the end of an audio segment, for example, let's take this audio segment here, and just to make it clearer, I'll use the time shift tool and move it slightly. Let's delete that second track just to make it clearer for you. So here we have this audio segment. Now we've done an edit at the beginning and at the end, so it is possible that there could be a sudden change in volume. So again, we can do a fade in and a fade out. Let's use the zoom tool. So I've clicked on the zoom tool, and let's zoom again. That's a little bit too much. And let's fade in to the beginning of this audio. So we'll go to the select tool, choose it. Here we're selecting it. And again, we'll do a fade in, and we'll do the same on the other side. We will fade out. So you can see that the volume increases and it comes in much more naturally.
So once you've finished your editing and you have everything cut up and you've got all the space eliminated and all the timing is how you want it, you can see here that everything is trimmed. I've got 2 separate tracks here. So this one is Brian and this one is me. I'll go ahead and play this for you just so you can hear what it sounds like now.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about you?
Good, thanks.
Any plans for...
So everything is edited and it sounds pretty good. But what if you want to make it sound even better? So you want to enhance the sound more. So there's a couple of tools that engineers use to make the audio sound even more professional, more high quality. The main 2 tools are EQ and compression. So EQ stands for equalization. And if I go here to effect, you can see, for example, I've got graphic EQ. So there's a lot of different types of EQ. It's very likely that you've used an EQ before in your life. You've probably seen it in a car or on a stereo that you used, where it just had a control for the bass and the treble and maybe the mids. If we just look at this graphic EQ, you can see all these numbers here. So these are frequencies. So on the left are the lower frequencies, on the right are the higher frequencies. So if I move these, I can turn up and down each individual frequency. So why would you want to do this? Well, normally if you're recording, there's going to be a lot of extra noise that's coming into the microphone other than just your voice. It might be the sound of the room. It might be the sound of the AC unit. It might be the sound of cars going by outside. Now, there's a lot of things that you can do with this, but the most basic thing that you'll want to do if you're recording is you want to cut out some of these low frequencies. Now, we could mess with these and just eliminate some of this low, muddy stuff. You could do that on your own, but also there's a lot of times there's factory presets. So for example, if I go here to factory presets, bass cut, that's going to cut everything under here. I'm going to mess with this. I'm going to make this just a little bit more standard. We don't need to cut out too much, but I definitely want to cut out all of this low stuff. It's just kind of a muddy sound. So if I hit OK, that's going to process. You can see the waveform change just a little bit. They all got a little bit smaller because I actually took out frequencies. And now I want to do the same thing to my track. So I'm going to highlight this whole thing. Effect, graphic EQ. You can see it's still actually set on the same settings. So that's the best use for EQ in vocal recordings, is just taking out some of those unwanted low frequencies. So the second tool we're going to check out is called compression. This one is a little bit more complicating, but you want to think of it almost like a sandwich. So there's basically two pieces of bread that keep everything on the inside. So you can see this waveform right here. If I zoom in here, you can see this one is quite a bit louder than this one. And you've probably seen like a YouTube video where the audio sounded kind of quiet, so you turned up the volume, and then suddenly maybe people burst out into laughter, or there was some louder sound and it just was so loud. So you had to then turn down your speakers. So what you want is that sandwich, those two pieces of bread that automatically bring down the loud parts and automatically bring up the quiet parts, so it's more standard, it's compressed. So if I highlight this, and I'm going to zoom back in, I'm going to go to effect, I'm going to go to compressor. Now there's a couple of controls here that are important. The threshold and the ratio are the most important ones. Now, a lot of other softwares will do this automatically for you. And it's not a big deal, but if you can understand these a little bit, it will help. So the threshold is the point at which it kicks in. So if you do a threshold up here, it's almost never going to kick in. You want to do it a little bit lower. And then the ratio is how much it's going to compress. So if you put this all the way up, it's going to compress at a super high rate. It's just going to smash everything in there. You can kind of play around with these until they sound good. But you can see if I go ahead and process this, watch these waveforms, how they change. So now you can see everything is a lot bigger and a lot more standard. Now it might look like I just turned everything up, but actually it turned up the lower parts and it turned down the higher parts. so it's more standard. Let's do the same thing to this track. Okay, so again, I'm going to highlight the whole thing. I'm going to go to Effect, Compressor. It's still set on the same settings. Click OK. So this should sound a lot louder and a lot more standard.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about you?
Good, thanks.
Any plans for the weekend?
I'm going to go shopping with my friends out at that new mall.
Cool. Have you been there yet?
No, not yet.
So now that we've compressed it, the signal is just much more standard across the whole thing. So now when people listen to this, they can just set their volume at one level. They don't have to change the volume. They don't have to turn it up when it gets quieter. They don't have to turn it down when it gets louder. So once you've done all of your EQ and your compression, this should make the track sound a lot better and a lot easier to listen to and play for whoever's using it. And those are the most standard tools that you're going to be using. But as you can see, there are a lot of other tools in here that you could also use. If you wanted to put some effects on certain parts, you could do that. For example, if you wanted to make it sound like it's in a bigger room or have some kind of echo on it, reverb and echo, or sometimes echo would be called delay, are here. So let's just walk through these real quick. So for example, if I highlight this, let's go to reverb, room size, reverberance, damping, tone low, tone high. There's all of these different parameters here. Let's go ahead and just preview it.
Any plans for the weekend?
So you can hear there's a kind of an echo on there. Let's see if we make the room size a little bit bigger.
Any plans for the weekend?
Okay, and then let's turn this up as well.
Any plans for the weekend?
So if you did want to make it sound like the audio was in a bigger room or a bigger space, you can use this tool. So if you want to put any type of echo on the sound, just go here to echo and you can play around with these numbers. Let's just go with 0.2 and 0.3 and just see what that sounds like.
Any plans for the weekend?
So you can see there's kind of an echo on the voice if you use that. If we maybe turn this up, there might be even more.
Any plans for the weekend?
So if you did want that kind of effect on the sound, you can use this tool or the reverb.
Now, let's supposing we want to add background music or sounds into Audacity, into our recording. How do we do that? And why would we want to do it? For example, you could have students create an audio story, or you could create an audio story for them. So let's see. From the import menu, we go to File, Import. We can import an audio. Let's find some audio. I'm going to switch to a browser. Now, if we go to, for example, a sound like findsounds.com, I've typed in horse and it returns all these different horse sounds. Let's listen to one of the horses. That's a pretty good horse. I'm not quite sure why we would want to add this horse sound to this particular dialogue, but you get the idea. So I am going to download that sound. To download it, I can just click on it and then choose save, and then I'll save it to my desktop. And it's a cheval horse. Well, cheval means horse in French. So we have it here, and then we can just drag it from there or from our desktop into Audacity. And now we can just begin our conversation with a very strange horse sound.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things?
Okay, so you get the idea. Let's undo that. Probably a more useful feature in most situations is to be able to add a bit of background music. And you can do this to make your recording sound a little bit more professional, or to create some atmosphere, or even to cover up some noise. Or of course you could include little bits of background music like jingles on a radio station to provide a break between different parts of a conversation or different parts of an audio program. So let's again go to a website Now, there are many websites that offer free music that you can use in your productions. Here we have a site called upbeat.io, and I created an account on this, and this allows me to download up to 10 free tracks. Let's just have a listen to one of them. Okay, that's fine, just for demonstration purposes. So I'll download that. So again, I'll download it onto my desktop. So we have it here, it's on our desktop. We can drag it from our desktop or directly from our browser into Audacity. So you can see that it comes in as a stereo file. Now it's going to be very, very loud, but let's listen to how it sounds so we can judge.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about...
Now that's obviously way too loud. Now we can change the volume on the track itself, or if you want another way to control the volumes when you have multiple tracks, you can use the mixer. Now the mixer is, let me remember where the mixer is. You can also use the mixer board. So that's from the view menu, we open mixer board. Now we can see our 3 tracks, and let's lower the volume here. Let's make it pretty quiet, and let's see how that is.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about you?
Good.
So we could do it that way, or we could just use a little bit of it before our audio starts. And as you can do with any other audio in Audacity, you can fade in and fade out. So sounds and background music can really add a bit of color and interest to your listening materials. Now that you've edited your listening materials and you've added some background sounds to make it interesting, what we want to do is tidy it up and then export it. So here at the end we have a long section that we don't need on the 3rd track. So let's just get rid of that. We'll go back to the select tool and let's just cut all that section. And just to tidy it up a little bit more, let's make a little fade at the end of that audio. Now we want to export. So if we go to export, we have various options. We can export as an MP3. Now, if you do export as an MP3, you're going to be prompted to install something called a LAME framework. And that's easy to do. It will give you the web page and you can easily download and install it, and it's completely free. Or you can export as a WAV file. Now, MP3 files are pretty good for sharing because they're about 1/10 of the size of WAV files. In theory, a WAV file is higher theory. In theory, a WAV file is higher quality than an MP3 file, but for the purpose of listening materials, an MP3 is fine and it will be easier for people to download. So let's choose export as MP3 and we will save that on our desktop. There are various settings, but probably the standard default settings are fine. Your tracks will be mixed down and exported as one stereo file. Okay, you can add your own meta information if you like, meta tags. So there we go, we've exported that. Now in the last step you exported from Audacity, so let's check that that opens okay. We'll double click on the icon.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Brian. How are things going?
Pretty good, thanks. How about you?
Good.
So that's playing without any problem. We've got our background music, we've got our voices. So what do we do with this file? Well, clearly we want to share it somewhere. And where can we share it? Okay, so how do we get our audio program out to the world? There are many platforms online now that will let you do it, often free. SoundCloud is a good example. Here is a textbook that I wrote years ago, and I've hosted all of the sound on SoundCloud. And if you want to use this, you need to create an account. If you already have an account, you just sign in. And then, of course, there's an upload button. So that's one very easy way of doing it. Another very easy way to do it is YouTube. You can just upload your sound to YouTube. Of course, YouTube is a video hosting site, so you will need to change it into a video, and you can do that with many common programs like iMovie or Adobe Premiere Pro, or there are even free websites online that will help you to change your audio into a video. And you can just add a still picture of the particular exercise in your book, maybe some instructions for students. Then you can share it and you're ready to go. You can share the link with your students and you are ready to share your high quality listening materials. When you're working in Audacity, one thing that can really speed up your work is to learn keyboard shortcuts. We've talked about a few of them already. The very common ones are undo, redo, cut, copy, paste, delete. But the more of these that you can learn, the quicker you will be able to work in Audacity. And we highly recommend it.
The next thing we're going to talk about are some more elaborate setups. So again, basic recording like on your phone. If you know how to edit and you know how to use some of the functions on editing software well, you can record pretty good audio just on your phone, using the microphone on your phone and putting it into an editing software. And if you know how to edit well, you can actually make it sound pretty good. But there are some situations which might require a more elaborate setup. Maybe you need higher quality audio, or maybe you want to have a setup for multiple people, like multiple voice actors with several sets of headphones. So I'm going to talk about a few ways that you can kind of level up. The first and probably easiest way that you can increase the quality of the audio is just by getting a higher quality microphone that can plug directly into your phone. So if you have an iPhone, you can get a pretty nice microphone that can just plug directly into the lightning port on your phone. And if you have different types of phones, there's some that can plug in via like the headphone jack. So that's using the same system that we've already gone over for editing, and using your phone, you can just up the quality a little bit by getting a microphone that plugs directly into your phone. So the next way that you can kind of level up even more from that is getting a USB microphone. So why would you want to get a USB microphone? Well, you can bypass the whole system of using your phone at all. So you can just get the USB microphone, which would plug directly into your computer. So this goes out on USB. And this will go directly in your computer, directly into the editing software. You don't need to import or export anything. And you can see on the microphone, there's some controls. So this would control the headphone volume, and there's actually a headphone jack right here on the microphone. This might not be on all USB microphones. They're going to have different kind of functions. This controls what you're hearing back through the mix. And this is also going to be a little bit more high quality sound than just your normal phone microphone. So if you want to level up even higher than that, so let's say you need multiple speakers, you need multiple voice actors going at the same time. Well, you're going to need multiple microphones, and you're also going to need multiple headphones. So this is going to be a more elaborate setup where we're going to need something called an audio interface. So this is an example of an audio interface. There's lots of different types, all different shapes, sizes. So you can see right here, just here I can plug in 2 microphones. And if we look at the back, you can plug in a few more if I wanted. There's other various connectors back here. I could plug in some external units and do even more microphones if I wanted. And you can see it just goes out on a USB cable directly into my computer. And the other thing that's great is this interface in particular has 1, 2, 3, 4 headphone jacks. So I could have 4 people listening on headphones and monitoring what they're doing simultaneously. So that would be the advantage of having an actual interface, is more flexibility for more elaborate setups.
So we'd like to thank everybody for joining us today in the presentation.
We hope you found all this information useful, and hopefully you can use it as a guide to make recordings on your own.
And if you have any questions, you can contact us on the email below.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.